NATO collapse? So did you hear President Trump's recent remarks about NATO and the leaders of European nations? Check this out. This is from The Guardian, one of many news pieces that have talked about this. Donald Trump lambasts weak and decaying Europe and hints at walking away from Ukraine. U.S. president recycles what is referred to in this article as far-right tropes on European immigration and presses Zelensky to accept his peace plan. New Trump doctrine identifies weak Europe's problem. And I got to say, like, it's interesting to read the headlines and then read the posts on social media about what's going on with President Trump, the current administration, and NATO, our previous European allies, still somewhat, but I mean, a lot's going on. And not only that, but there's two bills that have been introduced. One just recently, both this year, that we're going to get into. The most recent bill introduced by Representative Massie is a bill to remove the United States from NATO. This is from Thomas Massie. And then earlier this year, S2174 NATO Act, Senator Lee Mike, Republican in Utah, it is the S2174. That's also to potentially pull out of NATO. So let's get into this. And how are you doing? I hope you're having a fantastic day today. Thank you very much for watching the presentation here at Leak Project. We have about 420,000 amazing subscribers, and we've got like 60 people in the chat. So I don't know if, certain platforms just forget to send out notifications, or if this topic is just so boring that 60 out of 420,000 people show up. So you're one of the lucky ones, hopefully. And let's get into this. So here we go. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. I predicted this. I actually said, you know what, with the talk of leaving NATO, moving our troops out of Europe down towards the Caribbean and Venezuela, it seems like there's some big global shifts that are taking place right now. And they absolutely are. NATO's founding document, the North Atlantic Treaty, 1949, has a built-in exit clause. It's Article 13, perfect number, right? After the treaty has been in force for 20 years, any member can leave by giving a notice of denunciation to the U.S. government, the treaty's depositary. 1 year after that notice is given, the state automatically ceases to be a party to the treaty. So when I did some deep digging into this specifically, well, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's go to, gosh, I thought I was all organized and now things are, let's just look at the bills here presented right now. Here we go. Check this out. So today, Representative Thomas Massie introduced H.R. 6508. The NATO Act to remove the United States from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO is a Cold War relic. We should withdraw from NATO and use that money to defend our own country, not socialist countries, said Representative Thomas Massie. NATO was created to counter the Soviet Union, which collapsed over 30 years ago. Since then, U.S. participation has cost taxpayers trillions of dollars and continues to risk U.S. involvement in foreign wars. Our Constitution did not authorize permanent foreign entanglements, something our founding fathers explicitly warned us against. America should not be the world security blanket, especially when wealthy countries refuse to pay for their own defense. So what is the NATO Act? It requires the president to formally notify NATO of U.S. withdrawal under Article 13 of the North Atlantic Treaty. Concludes that NATO's original Cold War purpose no longer aligns with current U.S. national security interests, and it finds that European NATO members have adequate economic and military capacity to provide for their own defense. prevents use of U.S. taxpayer funds for NATO's common budgets, including its civil budget, military budget, and the Security Investment Program. Senator Mike Lee has introduced companion legislation, which is S-2174 in the United States Senate. And the text of the NATO Act is available right here. Let's check it out. What are you up to today? It's like 48 degrees out here in southern Colorado. The sun's out, blue skies. It's supposed to get into the mid-50s this week in Denver, mid-December. Wow. Weather's awfully interesting this year, isn't it? So this is the bill right here. And then also I wanted to point out this one from Mike Lee, or Mike Lee, S-2174, to require the president to give notice of denunciation of the North Atlantic Treaty for purposes of withdrawing the United States from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and for other purposes. I mean, it seems like we're definitely on the geopolitical side of things. The nation and the military and the political spectrum is absolutely moving towards a potential conflict with China. And so what do we do as a nation? Well, we move our troops down into the Caribbean towards Venezuela by the Panama Canal, which I think is a big reason we're moving a lot of our troops and military forces down towards the Caribbean. Let's get into this a little bit. I have notes that I'd like to share with you. So the document, back to this one. Let's go back to this bill here. Was released December 9th. It announces that Thomas Massie has introduced a bill in the House of Representatives, H.R. 6508, which is the NATO Act. And the stated purpose is to remove the United States from NATO. In the release, Massie describes NATO as a Cold War relic. He argues that since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, NATO's original adversary, the treaty's purpose has outlived its usefulness. The release claims U.S. taxpayers have paid trillions of dollars to sustain U.S. participation, and the continuing membership risks drawing the U.S. into foreign wars. I mean, how can you disagree with that? The bill would require the president to formally notify NATO of the U.S. withdrawal under Article 13 of the founding treaty. The bill includes a provision forbidding U.S. taxpayer funds from contributing to NATO's common budgets, civil, military, and security investment program budgets. And the release also notes that a companion bill in the Senate has been introduced, which is S-2174, the NATO Act by Mike Lee. The move does reflect a rising strand within U.S. politics, sometimes dubbed America First or non-interventionist, that questions long-standing alliances and foreign entanglements. As noted in the release, Massie frames NATO membership as a burden on U.S. taxpayers and a vehicle for being drawn into foreign wars. I mean, do you disagree with that? The timing coincides with broader global shifts, changing security dynamics in Europe, growing pressure on European NATO members to increase defense spending, and geopolitical competition with powers like Russia and China. If such a bill gained traction in the House and Senate, it would fundamentally reshape U.S. foreign policy posture, eliminating the backbone of U.S. security commitment to Europe and potentially forcing both ally and adversary recalibrations. Then when we look at 2174, this bill in particular, was introduced June 25th by Mike Lee, a bill to require the president to give notice of denunciation of the North Atlantic Treaty for purposes of withdrawing the United States from NATO and for other purposes. The bill also carries a shorter title, Not a Trusted Organization Act. If this bill was enacted into law, it would require the president within 30 days of the law's enactment to submit a formal notice of denunciation under Article 13 of the North Atlantic Treaty, the founding treaty of NATO, thereby triggering withdrawal of the United States from NATO. This would serve as congressional authorization under existing U.S. law, is specifically fulfilling the requirement laid out in 1250A of the FY 2024 National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year of 2024 for withdrawing, suspending, or denouncing NATO, bringing domestic law in line for an exit. Prohibit any U.S. funds, whether appropriated or otherwise made available, from being used to support U.S. contributions to any of NATO's common funded budgets, civil, military, or the Security Investment Program. That would effectively end U.S. financial support for NATO's institutional joint budget operations. So in essence, the bill is a pull the plug and cut the purse strings legislative vehicle. Now, the bill must still pass both houses of Congress and be signed into law. As of now, S-2174 is introduced and referred to committee, which is far from law. Even if enacted, there will be a 1-year waiting period per Article 13 before withdrawal becomes effective. Once a denunciation is sent, the political and strategic fallout will be immediate. European allies, adversaries, global partners, all will respond. Funding cutoffs and military base access will require renegotiation. Institutional and strategic relationships will need rebuilding. Allies may treat the U.S. differently even during the 12-month countdown. Oh, yeah, you don't say. Uncertainty could destabilize readiness, trust, and deterrence. Well, it could do a lot of things. It could do a lot of things. So what we're seeing right now, strategically and politically, is a breakdown of traditional U.S., Europe, allies, and alliance frameworks. Wow. To require the president to give notice of denunciation of the North Atlantic Treaty for purpose of withdrawing would also, let me go back here. We would have potential U.S. retrenchment from Ukraine and European security commitments, as President Trump did say that we could potentially just pull out of Ukraine. Let them take care of it themselves. Saying the U.S. may walk away from supporting Ukraine could mean a shift in U.S. foreign policy toward less engagement in Europe's security risks, obviously. If followed up with action, it could leave Ukraine more isolated. And well, actually, this is what I think is going to happen. Let me tell you what I think is going to happen. Forget the notes. Let's just talk about this for a minute. So if we leave NATO, if we officially pull out of NATO, imagine how much more money the U.S. would have to put into its own military here at home and secure, like what they're referring to as the Golden Dome, etc. But it would also, so Russia, Vladimir Putin says he doesn't want to go back to the Soviet Union. But I don't know if I believe that. I mean, it kind of seems like right now with, bringing Ukraine back into the umbrella under Russia, or attempts to with this war, that could be one of many nations that Russia wants back underneath the umbrella. They may not call it the Soviet Union, but I see a lot of potential shifts out there. And so I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I find it perfect timing. And I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think it's a good idea that we leave NATO? Or do you think that we should stay involved in NATO and continue to fund NATO the way that we have as a nation and a government? Leave your comments in the comment section. Thank you for watching. This is just a quick update on the current situation. Be excellent to each other. Be prepared, not scared, and be the change you want to see. Thank you.